we are moving towards our next speaker, Miss Julie from France. She is a senior advisor at European Innovation Council, co-lead author and also moderator as well. And nowadays she is working on a project Ensemble Together. And thank you so much, Miss Julie, for joining us today. And over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. I hope you hear me well. And thank you so much for the amazing contributions of other speakers, Benish and Bushra. I'm very grateful to be with you today to bring my contribution as well to this very important debate. I hope I will bring an interesting outlook on the issue. And from the day I was born until today, to be honest, my life has seemed pretty violent. If you think about it, I'm sure you will find some kind of similar feeling, whether you are a man or a woman. It happens I'm a woman, I'm French, passionate about the European project and collaboration. And on top of that, I wish to share my singularity, and it might explain why I'm with you today. At the start of my story, there is my name, Guegan, which means fighter in Celtic. And it's a trap, which I fell into at my birth, because I can't even remember a day when I stopped fighting for what I believed in. And this belief is big love. It's genuine love in a world that would thrive in interdependence and care. But you have to know that according to my belief, until a few months ago, fighting and violence had some kind of correlation. As if the only lesson we learn from our society, shaped by the adult behaviors around us, inherited from our history, the hopeful little children in each of us full of dreams, think that to fight for a fairer world with less injustices and more love, what we need is weapons, not flowers. Show guts and fists instead of a nice voice and a large smile. And from this realization that my path was like that of an ugly revenge than true beauty, I decided to explore the conditions to pursue the same goal, the same, but with a sense of deep alignment, making the most of who I am to bring the peace and sense of being a useful contributor to our society. And because I think we and the next generations after us deserve that we do everything for this, to heal this planet and our humankind, which is the only one to do something about the chaotic situation in which we find ourselves in. But by modeling the behaviors that we want to see around, toward more love, more care, more beauty, a world in which I would love to live, and my children, my 2 babies as well. And for this, so I had to find a way to stop adopting the same behaviors and productive patterns that, instead of creating a fairer world, was creating and making our world more upside down and ultimately violent. I feel we all have a role to play. Are we stuck in a vicious circle of violence? And how to turn virtuous without any inch of resentment, starting with who we are, whether victims, perpetrators, healers, judges. I believe we all have a role to play. And through this talk today, my goal is to share my findings with you, with a hope, a sincere hope that we collectively, but also individually, begin to implement the recommended changes from now on. Profound transformations for a society that would put an end to its markers of violence for good. They are based, my findings, on years of experience and research into the conditions to create a more collaborative world, a humanity that would address all its complex issues. Why even wait to start doing it right? Especially because we know the trend is terrifying. We have never seen so many incivilities everywhere. Violence, whether against women or men, children, and other vulnerable spaces is simply increasing as we speak. I only believe we can do better. We could, in fact, become an exceptional civilization that reverses that trend. But let me first focus on some of the signs of what I feel is a very, very, very violent society, and the consequences that these messages that we receive every day, whether directly or indirectly, cause in us as a reaction. And then I will present the solutions that will lead us, hopefully, to another enriching debate. But first, from my point of view, the signs of a violent society. Disempowerment. We vote for representatives every 4 or 5 years and delegate our power to them blindly. But we see the betrayal when they make decisions without us on things that impact our privacy, our sense of responsibility, whether as professionals or parents. It was very obvious during the COVID crisis, or more recently with the war in Ukraine, that we shouldn't delegate our trust so much to our authorities. The system thinks and is obviously corrupted when the hegemony of some becomes their sole objective. Of course, we have all stories that can back at this point. There are also pockets of beautiful stories that say the opposite, but we had to start from the position that we all, at every level of the society, feel disempowered to make the changes we need. Disrespect, a very concrete example over a year now, as I've been pushing for a new European dream for Europe. Do you think that after a year of lobbying everywhere about the condition to make this world a better place, any of our leaders contacted me to find about my solution after 15 years of research? Lack of belonging. I organized sessions at the European Commission for a year and a half to identify the causes of most of our problems. And this lack of belonging to our society appeared as a major issue. From bottom to top, there is just this feeling of disempowerment, that we cannot change or veto things that look absurd. There's also this inherent feeling of rejection abandonment, oppression, valorization of superficial behaviors, more filters, more makeup, more illusion and magic, authenticity and vulnerability, which are the signs of a healthy and strong society, are more for the weak, it seems. Mercantilization of love. Never in our history has love seemed more expensive to us, and we are drawn to such a false love. The word of Nike, Google, Apple, Facebook, a big smile hiding a brutal heart. The dream is attractive, but it's just a facade. You don't want that world. You don't want that world, I can tell you. Trivialization of violence, which becomes almost harmless, but natural. Let me be violent so that I can express who I am and recognize myself. Now, let me tell you, violence is not the choice of nature. We can do better. More dissimulation of what makes us good beings. Like it's better to look cool or fun than really caring. Are we supporting caregivers in our society? Or are we praising caretakers? Tell me. More isolation, which clearly weakens us every day. No, you cannot be strong on your own. You can only be strong if you act in a community. So isolation is very dangerous. And in particular, I look at the personal development gurus, those who preach for protection when what we need is movement and togetherness. Positive thinking that makes us look so bad and feel guilty, even wrong, instead of, just being here, appreciating our flaws and wounds that are the entry point to love. And I could go on and on and on, but now is the time to look at the solution. To move from drama to victory, moving from victims, perpetrators, judges, to benevolence, vulnerability, and solidarity. When you fight the evil, you amplify it. So let's be strategic. And for that, the first thing we need is more dialogue. More dialogue everywhere to foster empathy between us. Violence is often the result of misunderstanding of people's fears. Let me tell you, I see that the ghosts of a violent society are still there in our brains. They're here. Time to confront them. Time to fight the real enemies, the ones that are opposed to our freedom. We can do better than staying stuck with negative feelings. We can let go, forgive, to finally respect our difference and our need for choices. And I have been violated in my life as a woman. So I have so much empathy for those who've been violated as well, like men. But I think it's time for forgiveness and healing. And finally, yes, this is because we will have made this choice to focus on building the new, that we will be in a position to heal, because when we choose, we heal. And that's why I'm so supportive of Iranian women at the moment who choose the freedom to love who they are. And we have to support them. And as a society, what we need is to give all our encouragement And it's also time we give the tools and equip citizens of the world to become who they really are, making the most of who they are, instead of letting this terrible tap on our head, physically or virtually. We have the right to blossom. I was the first to believe social media would lead us to a better world. Well, it's on the contrary, reinforcing everyday division and polarization. What can we do to change this? More collaboration and distributed leadership for a society that becomes the master of its destiny. Organize more co-creation, activities everywhere, spontaneous, agile, assemblies at local level, support the community spirit. That is what makes us strong as human beings, and that is what will empower to do the right thing for our world. And promote beauty, arts, education, sports. We never needed more of this. We need to learn to work collaboratively, promote empathy, health, nature for an exceptional civilization. During my life, I found that it's much easier to be ambitious for others than for oneself. To be courageous for oneself in order to have the ambition to become oneself independently of the gaze of others is the most beautiful lesson that we can pass on to our children. And I see my emancipation as a woman, not stuck in resentment, faced with a patriarchal system that we see is killing us all, whether men and women. I think through this emancipation, I want to encourage others to follow me in one of the most fulfilling adventures of our lives, focusing on the new, focusing on making this world a better place. And if we decide to care more, choose more, then we can heal this world from all its violence. And yes, I decided to use this day for the elimination of violence against women, to not focus on this violence in particular, but all violence, with a view to pass an important message, that we can all bring peace from everywhere we are. And instead of putting the focus on the problems, looking at the solutions, to encourage each other, to support each other, and to heal what I see as a very sick world, attached to emotions more than people, attached to beliefs more than reality, attached to a faith in a past that will not provide us the best future. I want to create the foundations of a world in which we will all love to live, while waiting to be dead to live and love. Let's make here a heaven on earth in which we will all have a key role to play. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Yuli. Your presentation was very energetic and emotional as well. But as you said, we have to focus more on the solutions rather than focusing on the problems we are facing, because the today's agenda is the violence against women and girls. So definitely we all know about the violence that's going on across the globe. So we have to focus more in finding solutions of those problems, rather than focusing on the issues, because everybody knows these issues. But as rightly said, and I would like to add just 2 points, and then we will be moving towards our question answer session. So you all, I mean, 3 of the speakers discussed about the domestic violence, and you talked about society, you talked about the violence in flood affected areas, or the areas which are affected by some earthquakes, floods, or other calamities. But I think here we have to remember this as well, that many women and girls and children are displaced by wars and conflicts as well, and they are living in refugee camps in Syria and in across the globe. So I mean, their health and their vulnerability is very important, because if we see in a society, women and girls are somehow, whether in a developing or developed world, somehow they are safe, because they know that they are living in a society, and if something happens, they are going to report it to police, or maybe they are going to inform their relatives or whatever. But I mean, those women and girls who are in conflict hit areas, and those who are living in refugee camps, I think they are more vulnerable, because they are not administered or run by any government. The refugee camps, they are they look after of all the refugee camps, and these places are under the United Nations. And if we see UN and other peacekeeping operations, WHO, UNFPA, UNICEF, UNHCR, these international organizations are working, for the, you can say, to look after those people. But again, I would say they are more vulnerable, and they can be used, and they are mostly used by some external forces against that specific country, because those refugees, their living conditions are not well, and they are vulnerable to, they are in a situation that they may be used by any third party against the host country. So I think as far as society is concerned, countries are concerned, they have governments, they have institutions, they have rules and regulations, they have laws. Somewhere the strong, somewhere, there is some loophole. But we should not forget those women, girls, and all vulnerable people, all genders, those who are suffering from the conflicts. So I think it is our responsibility to focus on all areas when we talk about internationally about refugees, and in our countries about all people living in urban and rural areas. We have to focus on them as well, because mostly in rural areas, far flung areas, there is we have seen many kind of violences. And if we say I mean, rules and regulations are hardly implemented there, in far flung areas. So I think maybe the domestic violence, the rate of domestic violence is less in Islamabad, in Karachi, in Lahore, in Peshawar, in Quetta. Maybe it will be high in other regions. Maybe it will be high in other cities as well. So I think we have to focus on our vulnerabilities, that where is the issue and how to at least minimize that level. So basically the session, today's session, the purpose of this session was to highlight the issues and try to, present an idea that what youth can play. I mean, we all are mostly here young people. So what is the responsibility of youth? I think what youth can do is that we have, power. We have power of social media, but I think that's not enough. What we can do is we can highlight the issues, and we can, contact the relevant authorities, Ministry of Human Rights. We can contact the, other offices that are relevant to the women's rights, and also, and most importantly, if you talk about Pakistani society, definitely the societies across the globe, they are different, their values and everything. So if you talk about Pakistani society, we have, other kind of system or culture, you can say, because here in Pakistan, mostly people, they resolve their issues, sitting at home. I mean, they don't go outside. They don't tell others about their domestic issues. And even though the thing reaches at domestic violence and other issues as well, because girls are afraid of telling their personal matters to the world and to the country, to other people as well. So I think maybe this is one of the issue I can say, because they want to resolve all the matters within their home, within the territory of their home, where they are living. They don't want to express, or to represent themselves in front of court, police, or other, you can say, institutions. So what we can do is that there is, again, I would say condemnation is not enough, and it should be condemned, because domestic violence, acid attacks, harassment, I think there is no space for these things in a good society. We strongly condemn this, but I think it's our responsibility as well to make things collaborative, and also we should respect, as one of the speaker also said, that there is a disrespect and disempowerment. So it is our responsibility to give respect to the opposite gender, females, and also we have to empower them to wherever we are. We have to empower them. We have to give them the space, respect, and everything what we can do. So this is basically, I think, we can do. And also that's it. These are my little bit closing remarks. Thank you so much to all the speakers and the participants for joining us on a very short notice.